blow this scene, get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Hey everybody, it's Mr. Buro from Staten Island Tech, and today's demo is going to be a big one. It's on a topo surface or a contour topography in Revit, along with something called a subregion, which is a division of the topo surface to put different materials, and also a building pad, which is the foundation that you lay for a building that cuts into the topo surface. What you're looking at here on screen is just a quick demo file I made of a topo surface with some extremes on it. There's a little bit of a mountain built into it with some hilly terrain, some foliage is placed there. There's a small pond at the south end, and also you could see some roads and things laid in using subregions. I'm going to flip over to the Enscape scene for that right now. Here is a view from where the pond is, and if I float towards the top, you'll see the mountain come into view, as well as other things. I'm going to kind of move forward a little bit, show you the road, how it's just kind of cut into the particular topography, and then bring your attention over to the way the building is flat on the side of the mountain over here, and then there's another piece at the height of this extension that is also flat on the inside. That is all done with the use of building pads. So building pads to flatten out the surface to create your foundation, subregions to create differences in the terrain as far as materials. That's done with the water and the pavement in various places. And the overall topography's material is, of course, grass. All of that is done using quite a bit of stuff, and I really hope you enjoy this particular aspect of Revit. I think it brings a lot of attention into the realistic views, and of course, if you can get to this, the Enscape VR type view. For further explaining the command of topo surface, I'm going to just cut to a different video where I explain what a topographical map is, or a contour map, for those of you that don't understand it, and then we'll go right into doing the Revit part. Take a look. So to explain how the topo surface command works in Revit, you see below over here a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional surface. In Revit, when you activate the topo surface command, you have to place points at different elevations that form lines that you won't see necessarily depending on what the elevation change is. But all the points kind of come together to create a surface of a specified elevation. So in this picture, you could see that everywhere along this line over here, there's an elevation of 1100, where along the next line up, there's an elevation of 1200, and then 1300 over here, and you can see 1400 over here, with a little bit of a different specification over here with these two peaks. And there's the 1100 and the 1200, 13 and 14. You can see the 1200 also has a line over here, and then there's a separate little piece over here which creates this peak. So you can think of these dashed lines as level markers in Revit, just like they serve to show the height of the contour lines that are being represented. For instance, this marker over here would be 1100, this would be 1200, this would be 1300, this would be 1400, etc. So when using the topo surface command, make sure you're very careful about where you place your points, and you'd be very surprised how dramatic the effect is when you're doing a walkthrough or screenshots or any type of rendering. You get a real startling effect of a 3D outside world. And once you place your building there, you will be very impressed. Okay, so now that we're back to this particular part, we're going to look at the sample design that I made, just what that topography looks like, sort of as a finished product, before we go into making one. So I'm going to go from the 3D view that I have here to the site plan. The site plan is really where this all kind of takes shape. you could see as I click on this particular part, it is a topo surface item or topography. And then if I click on even the smaller parts over here, you could tell that they are called subregions. So that's like the subregion here. And the road is a subregion, the sidewalk is a subregion. And again, those are for different materials. But as I click on the topography itself, and if I hit edit surface, you could see all of these points open up. And these points are the points that are used to create the contour lines themselves. The lines don't have to be drawn. They're drawn automatically by the collections of points that you place. So it does take a lot of practice to get this to look just right. So let's do that. We're gonna open a new file up, which should be over here. This is a blank file. And first I'm gonna go to make sure we're on the site plan, which we are. I'll go to the massing and site area, and I will begin creating a topo surface. Now, like I said before, a topo surface is created by laying down points at certain elevations. The most basic elevation would be, of course, 0. So I'm going to place that at 0, and I'm in the point placing command. And right away, I'm going to make a very, very simplistic looking surface. It's going to just be kind of like an irregular quadrilateral. Those are at 0. And then I will create something at 10. Over here. And then we'll put a 20. I'll hit the check. We'll go to the 3D view. And in the 3D view, you can see that this looks very, very, very artificial. And I did this on purpose. If you only lay a couple of points down to define your elevations, you're gonna see a very, very, very artificial looking item. And this is not because it's in black and white. I could switch it over to color, and you can see that it's brown initially, but then even if I color it to grass, using my pre-made grass item, which is here, you can see that it's just very, very, very artificial looking. So that's not really the way to go. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this topography. I'll go back to the site plan. And just to show you that I can change this particular topography to look a lot more natural, I'm going back to place points, changing this back to 0 to add more 0 elevation points. And around where I have those zeros, I'm just going to be putting a lot more points in. And I'm going to purposely make arc-shaped pieces at the ends to show a more natural transition. So those would be my zeros. And I'm probably going to also put a couple of zeros over here to show like a little bit of a flat edge around certain thicknesses changing. And now I'll switch over to something like 5. And I'll kind of cut into the transition here a little bit. And then I'll go over to 10. And where I put my other 10s, I'm gonna also add more points. So there will be like a steeper side to this on the back. And then I will change to 20 and just clean up that peak. And then for it to not have a flattened top, I will pick 15. I'm sorry, no, not 15. I'll pick 22 to make it soften a little bit up here. And then an apex of 28. Just putting 2 dots right there. Okay, so I switch back to this in 3D, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that it did take a much, much better shape. It has that very, very sharp peak, which I think I'm going to change a little bit. But for the most part, you could see the transitioning in a much, much, much better way. And this is a large piece. So you're going to have a lot of space to make some land. And then while you're working with the building, you shouldn't stop editing the topo surface. The topo surface should be something that you edit all the time. And then once you actually have it, you could change it in 2D or 3D as much as you want. So I'm going to cut this back down to, let's say 21. And this one too. And that looks a lot better, has a more rounded top to it. Okay, so that's basically how you create a topo surface. I'm gonna make one in a lot more detail just in a few minutes. But first, I wanted to let you see how exactly you go from something with a simplistic array of points to something more complex to achieve that natural terrain. Very important that you hit that. Okay, next I'm gonna be creating a new topo surface that's a lot more complex to show the vast variations that you could have in a particular area. And I'm gonna prepare quite a few things for it. So for the next part of the segment, it's going to be played in kind of like a fast motion. So please cue the warp speed.
Help warp 1, engage!
this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Okay, so now we're gonna switch back to regular speed, and to go from here, you can see I created a very, very large space with a sort of a mountainous area over there that transitions very slowly down to 0. And then there's a very, very deep valley type thing over here, and then another short hill. I'm actually gonna turn the valley thing, I'm gonna try to turn it into something that looks like a river. So I'm gonna go down to that top view, and I'm going to, in masking inside, I'm going to create something called a subregion. Okay, so a subregion is drawn in 2D, and you definitely want to be able to see how this works. In fact, I'm going to switch over to the site view to quickly just look at the surface again. I know I have my points over here and over here, so that's pretty much where I want this to be. So I'll go ahead and create that subregion, and I'll use splines to kind of draw it out because they look much more natural that way. And as you can see, I'm kind of shaping what would look like a river. And eventually what I'm going to do to make it look right is I'm going to cut off the edges of the river so you can't see it in the 3D view. And then at the end, I'll just join it together. Okay. Check. Okay. So here's my subregion. And I'm going to make that water, which I have a predetermined material for. And now we'll take a look in 3D. Looks fine. Pretty good. Just probably have to edit that one side of the subregion. And hit edit boundary for that. Go to the top. No, actually, I'm going to leave it the way it is. Okay, so I have that watery subregion, which looks fine. I'm going to create another small subregion over here just so you can see how it looks.
I think it's time to blow this thing.
So I'll go to massing and site and pick subregion. This time I'm just going to pick like a rectangular one and place it over here. And maybe I'll just put like an arc-shaped front to it. I'll delete this. And I will hit the check. I have something over there. And that one I will make pavers, which I should have also set. See, that looks like some stone there. It's a very, very large port. Okay, so now we're looking good. We have our river area and our paver area. And I'm going to temporarily flip over to here just to show you again. I have a similar thing over here with the particular water, and I have the house sitting on the hill. Let's take a look at two other topo surfaces that I prepared. This one is a lot simpler, and I'm showing you this one for the purpose of looking into a building pad. So this topo surface, if you look at it from an elevation standpoint, it starts at a kind of like a sea level of 0, but a ground level of 5, and then a basement level of -5. So 10 feet below the ground level is the basement, and then it goes all the way up to level 5. So I'm going to go back to that 3D view. From the side perspective, you can see it's kind of like a very flat hill. I'm going to switch over to the top view, and I'm going to just simply lay down a building pad. So I'll go to massing and site, pick building pad, and I'll go to the ground level, and I will create a building pad right here. It's going to be an irregular polygon. Nothing fancy. And again, I want that on ground level first. So there it is. You can see I have a flat surface now at ground level. But if I were to pick this, I want to show you how a building pad becomes more significant. If I switch it to the basement level, you see it drops down to the basement level, making a perfect cut inside that area. Now that does look ridiculous at first, admittedly, for sure. But Revit has a perfect way of handling this, because when you go to the wall creation mode, if I want to pick this brick on metal stud, I'm going to make sure that I'm drawing based on the finished face exterior, and I'm going to have those based on the basement level, and they will go all the way up to, let's say, level 4. So these are going to be some tall 5-story walls that start at basement and go to level 4. And I'm clicking, and as you can see, because I'm drawing based on the exterior of the wall, all I have to do is snap to the edges of the building pad, and I get a really, really perfect looking wall come together. So there we go. Let's take a look at that in 3D, and as you can see, it looks like the building is completely flush with the ground level. In fact, if I put a meaningless door on the front, you'll see it snaps perfectly onto that ground level right here. So that door seems to be an entrance to this large brick structure, and you can't even tell that the structure itself goes deep into the ground 10 feet. So that building pad does a really great thing of allowing it to have a depth inside the topography without even worrying about whether or not the land is flat. So that's a pretty good, nice, even cut. Let's switch over to this particular topography, which I also had preset. This one has a much more extreme change. You can see that it goes from level 1 up to level 3. I'm gonna cut a building right into the side of this, just again, so you can show the building pad itself. Let's go to massing in site, pick building pad. This building pad is going to be based on level 1, and I'm going to just simply draw a rectangle that cuts right here, and I'll make it a long one so you can see how it makes that particular thing. So from top-down view, looks like a 2D rectangle, but when you go to the 3D perspective, it does make a much deeper cut into the hill, where on the front side, it actually only cuts down very, very little. And that's because, again, it's based at ground level, which is over here, level 1. So it's actually cutting into the building, into the terrain right away, but to a much, much more extreme set over here. So this is going to be a little strange when you're working with it, because you have to remember that part of this is going to be underground and most of the front part is not. But when you're doing your design, a lot of buildings aren't built this way. You could actually make it really, really nice. Okay, so that's how you make building pads. Let's go back to our brand new site, which is this one here with the river. And I'm going to show you a nice trick to making the river look nice. So I do want you to see this in Enscape for sure, so I'm going to get that going in just a second. But prior to doing that, we'll put down a building pad for this particular set. And for this one, I'm going to probably go to that elevation view just to see what's going on here. This is a marker at level 2. And this would be level 1 over here. So I'm going to put the building right over here and probably modify the terrain a little bit. So let's go to 3D again, to that top-down view. I'll click on the surface. I'm going to actually lay down some more points that are at 0, because I want this particular area to look a little bit more flat. Okay, so I put kind of like a border thing happening over there, and I'll actually pick the expansion back up over here at 3 feet, just to show it's kind of like wrapping in a little bit. Good. Okay, so that should be fine. And just to make sure on that edge, I'll throw a couple of zeros. Good. So let's go back, take a look. Much more flat at the moment. So now I can go ahead and make my building pad. So I'll go to building pad and I'll make a rectangular shaped building here. Hit the check. And right away, I'll just jump into creating architectural walls based on the exterior face. They're going to go from level 1 up to level 2. In fact, let's make them unconnected and go up to 40 feet, just to make it look a little bit more ominous. There we go. Just modify those. Okay, so now I have my paver sub-region in the front of the building. I have the massive structure right there, and I want to finish off this river, which is going to really look good. Let's take a look at this in Enscape first. Okay, we're going to switch the view to Project 5. So here's Project 5, and when I get to the ground level, you could see the building is right there. The water looks ridiculous first, because right now the bottom surface of the ditch is the water, but that's going to look really good soon. I promise you that. And the peak actually came out to be pretty nice, noticing that it's like actually smaller than the building at the moment. So let's take a look over here. I'll keep the view a little bit lower around there, and I'm going to show you some magic. First, let's go back into the site view, and I'm going to do something that I highly recommend you don't do except for the purpose of creating water. I'm going to actually create a second topography right here that matches this particular height. So actually, before I do that, let's go and click on the surface one more time, edit it, and let's see what those depths are again. This was at -4. So my -4 border is over there, which means my water probably would be safe at maybe -3 or so. So let's try that out. Okay, so I'm gonna stop editing this surface, and I'm gonna click topography or topo surface, and I'm gonna create new points. And this, I'm not really gonna be worried about the shape as long as it's fully encompassing the subregion that I want the river to be. So all points at -3, and I'm just gonna create a box right here, like so. I'm gonna have to edit that one point. Let's bring that outward. And that looks pretty good. I'm gonna hit the check. And right now, remember, this has no material associated with it, but I'm gonna switch quickly over to water and hit OK. And let's see how this looks. Let's go back over to Enscape. And it looks like it came out pretty good. Let's get down low to the ground. And when you're on the ground, the water actually looks pretty nice. I do have some depth coming from that underlying thing. I might want to edit it so it goes down a little bit more. Like maybe instead of at 3 feet, I'll make it to like -3.5 feet. And remember, I said I wanted to cut off the edges, so that's something that we haven't really accomplished yet. Let's take a look at that first. Remember, I don't want that to appear right there, and I'll show you what I mean by that. In this view, this 3D view, right here, which is what is displaying that particular piece, I want to go ahead and create a section box. And this is a trick also with topography. When you have a section box, and you bring the section lines in to cut off part of the area, you get a cut pattern coming in, showing you basically the edge of the quote-unquote dirt that's there, but it's not really actually there. So it gives a little bit more depth viewable to the particular area. So let's do that. I'll actually cut the back off as well, and the front. See if that looks like from top down. Okay, so now I'm going to click that topo surface and hit edit the surface. I want to bring some of these points outward so it fills up that area. So that's good. One of these points I'll just bring out here. That's good. And I think I'm actually going to edit the other topo surface as well, like I had said before. So let me go into that site plan. And I want to click on this topography. I want to edit that particular surface. But right now, I only see this point here. I have to select those other two. I have them selected right now. I'll change this to negative 3.5 feet right there. So that's good. I'm actually going to place a few more points at negative 3.5 feet or negative 3 feet 6 inches. I'll put a few over here. And let me just make sure these are also that way. Which looks good. Let me save that. And let's take a look at what it looks like over here. This should have been up. Now you see the river kind of just comes into view over here, and it does coast gently on the surface again. Looks pretty nice. So that's a sub-region. The pavers on the other side are a sub-region over here, which you can't really see so much because the building is so dark. The building is sitting on a building pad, and we have a lot of different type of terrain over here. To put stuff on here, such as trees and things like that, that's really easy. Just go to the 3D view, and you can go ahead and pick on the site components over here, or you could even do it from the regular component view. I'll pick site components, and I'll pick some 25-foot ash, or let's go with a 30-foot maple trees. I'm just gonna randomly place them over here. You can see this is gonna go a long way. Do this from the top-down view. It's kind of strange sometimes. And let's switch over to a smaller tree. Let's go with the 15-foot Japanese cherry tree. And I'm gonna be placing those along the mountain. I get warnings that they're not being displayed, but they'll be there. You'll see.
I think it's time to blow this thing.
Just mix a few over here as well.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
And as you can see, inside the view over here, they jumped in very quickly. It's pretty thick forest, but the effect is there for sure. You can switch to bushes and things like that to get them really working nicely. Okay, so enjoy making exterior views. Try to make them as scenic as possible, as realistic as possible. Don't forget, you're going to have to do a lot of work when it comes to laying the points the right way. Try to pre-plan where your subregions are going to be to get that really natural transition between roads and rivers and pavers, walkways, sidewalks, gardens, whatever you'd like to do to change that primary material for the topography. You will have to use the subregions. And then of course, the building pads, they're your most fierce tool. They'll cut right into the topography and allow you to create one structure or multiple structures or multiple tiered structures whenever you like. Don't forget, in my first thing that I showed you, which is right here, there are 2 building pads here, one for this level and then one for the level up here to put different cuts into the mount. Just make sure they don't overlap. That should be it. Good luck, and thank you very much.